All right, guys, today we're going to talk about rotations. And a rotation is a type of transformation that revolves around a fixed point called the center of rotation. And we're not going to deal with too many different types of centers of rotation. We're going to specifically focus on one. Our center of rotation is going to be the origin, which is 0, 0, and I'll put that on there. So again, a rotation is a transformation that revolves around a fixed point called the center of rotation. And I'm going to put in parentheses for us. That is origin slash the coordinates are 0, 0. Okay. Things you need to know about rotations is figures rotate about a specific direction. So they all go one direction or the other. If you're rotating one point of a figure, you're rotating that whole figure that direction. And you're rotating at specific angles. And while there are other angles that you might rotate at, we're going to specifically talk about 90 degrees, 180 degrees, 270 degrees, and 360 degrees. And there are rules. When we talk about rules, that's just a way of giving you directions or of you telling the effects, what happens to the coordinates. So, like in this, what we're saying is if I rotate my direction 90 degrees and I have an angle, let's say that my original angle, we're going to go ahead and say that my original angle is 3 comma 2. Okay, basically what that means is we're saying if we take this rule, I'm going to do what the rule is and what it changes to on the other, just so that you have it. So our rule, when we're talking about the rule, we're saying that if I go 90 degrees clockwise, which is the way a clock travels, so that would be going, if I were starting with A, I'd be going this way. I'd be going to my right. So I'm going to make sure that I put that there. So we're going to put that it goes one right. Okay. And you can see that if I were going 90 degrees, I'd go one right if I'm going clockwise. If I'm going, and then what we'll say is with clockwise, okay, our rule is that we change the order and change the sign of X. Okay, that's our rule. So in our example, that would mean that we change the order and we change the sign of X. Okay, so we would have, instead of 3, 2, we'd have 2, negative 3. Now, counterclockwise just means that I am going left instead of right. So that means one left. I'm going to put one L. Okay. It changes again. Instead of it being y negative x, now we're going to say, well, that's negative y comma x. Okay. And in our example that I gave you, if I were starting here, we're saying, well, if I move over left 1, well, think about our quadrants. We're saying this is quadrant 1, or this is quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, quadrant 4. Again, it's kind of about where you land. If I'm landing from quadrant 1 to quadrant 2, well, my sign is going to change. I'm going to have a negative and a positive. So this case, I would have negative 2 because our order changes, and I would have 3 as my coordinates. Our next one is 180 degrees. I'm going to just let you know that both of these are the same. No matter which one that you're doing, both of those are going to be the same because no matter what we're going to, and if you think about it, if I go two right, I'm going 1, 2, I end up here. If I'm going to left, I'm going 1, 2, I'm ended up in the same place no matter what. So this is just going to, in clockwise, it's going to right. Okay, we're going to say for our equation that we're going to keep the order the same, but we're changing the sign. So it's going to be the exact opposite signs for both coordinates. In our example, that would mean that we would have negative 3 comma negative 2. Okay. The only difference here is we're saying we're going to left, but really it doesn't matter which direction we go in for the 180 degree rotations, they're the same. So we're just going to go ahead and say, just for the sake of argument, we're going to make sure that that it's still changing. We're keeping the same order, but we're changing the signs of X and Y. So in our example, going from 3, 2, we would have instead negative 3 comma negative 2. Okay. You'll notice some of these look really similar to reflections, which is why it's easy to confuse these sometimes with reflections. We want to make sure that we know we're able to view what that are with the reflections. The difference is that our numbers change order, they change signs, but they change it slightly different. So just kind of keep that in mind when you're looking at the rules. Now, for 270 degrees clockwise, we're going three spaces right. So just remember clockwise is right, counterclockwise is left. So three spaces right. Okay. Our equation for this, here's the funny thing, because it is going to be the same as the rules for counterclockwise for 90 degrees. And I'm going to show you why. But let's go ahead and get our numbers in. So we're saying, okay, we go three right, that's negative y, negative x, or what negative y x. And so then our coordinates are going to be negative 2 comma 3. And here's why. Let's look at it. So if I am going three right, that's 1, 2, 3. Well, if I am going one left, that's one. No matter what, I'm ending up in that same space. That's why your 270 degrees, they just flip the order, where counterclockwise for 90 degrees is the same as clockwise for 270 degrees, and vice versa. I'm literally just going to go ahead and copy this because it is the same exact thing as what my rotation for 270 degrees is going to be. So remember, 90 degrees clockwise is the same as 270 degrees. So that's why it's really important to pay attention to what direction you're supposed to go. The difference is we're going to change this to three left. Okay, because what I like to do is, when and you'll see when I do this, I do the rotations. I say, okay, I'm starting here. That's going 1, 2, 3. Okay, that means I know that my signs are going to be positive. I have to just see if I switch numbers, and you'll see that. Here's a nice thing for 360 degrees. We're going to just put a box, and I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. We're going to go ahead and increase the font up in there. Not that much. Go ahead and increase that to 24. We'll put lands in the same place, no matter what direction. Okay, so 360, it's really just saying, hey, I've got around, I've spent all the way around, I've landed in the same place. Okay, go ahead. I may pause the video now to make sure that you have what you need, and we'll go ahead and I'll take any questions at that time. Okay, we're going to do a few examples. So first, before we do that, just so that we use the same, we have the same coordinates for these, I'm going to go ahead, because I did the same triangles every time, I'm going to go ahead and put the coordinates that we're going to use for our original. So I'm going to call it triangle A. Okay. Triangle A coordinates, and we'll give this back to the other font that I was using. We'll use F16. All right, triangle A, here's my coordinates. So we're going to go ahead and call the first one 1, 2. Okay, our second one is 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it's going to be 1, comma 8. And our last coordinate is going to be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9, comma 2. And those are my coordinates. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want us to know, okay, based on where those coordinates are, what is the rule that I'm going to use? So if I'm going 90 degrees counterclockwise, let's go look at our rule for 90 degrees counterclockwise, okay? It's this. So that means that I want you to put this, I'm going one left, and that's my rule. And all I'm saying is that when I go one left, my rule is saying, okay, I am, if I can do this, okay, I'm going to move one left. So that means I'm going into this one. That means that my signs are going to have to be negative, are going to have to be negative positive. Okay. And I switch the order. If I figure out where it's going to land, I know if I'm switching the order that all of these are going to be negative. So I can go negative, switch the order 2, comma 1. Okay. I know that it's going to be negative, switch the order 8, comma 1, because we're switching from, I did a decimal, but it should be 8, comma 1. Okay. Because I'm switching the order here. My last one, I'm going to go down, is going to be negative, and we know it's going to switch order 2, comma 9. Okay. So that's my rule, and we can go ahead and we can draw it. I'm going to do what I've done last time where I've said, okay, I'm going to start at -2, 1. So -2, 1 is about here. Yeah, that's a dot. All right, my next one is going to be -8, 1. So so that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You can probably see it on yours a little better than I can, and that's okay. We'll still be drawing the figure. Okay. And then my last one was -2, 9. So I've got -2, that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It should be one, it should be one away from the top. So right here, this is 9. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and connect my fancy dots right now. I'll do it in green so that you can see the difference. But one of the things you'll notice for a rotation is that your distance in the rotation, when you rotate it, it's about the same as your distance from the other one. And this is about as good of a triangle as we're going to get. So just kind of go with me. But what you'll notice is like my bottom that I had here, if I were to flip this over, I would have one space here. Okay. From here, from the other side, I would have 2, and you notice I have 2 there, and I have, honestly, because this could extend however far, but you'll just notice that away from the origin, it's going to be the same distance. It's just flip-flopped a little bit. So like on this one, I've turned it over on its side, and that's why I've got one space here instead of here, and I've got 2 spaces here. So you can kind of notice that difference. Okay. Our next one, okay, we're saying we're doing 270 degrees counterclockwise. Well, let's go up there. 270 degrees counterclockwise, that is going to be this. So we're moving 3 left. We're changing our order, and we are changing the sign of X. So I'm going to go ahead and put that down here so that you can see it, maybe. Okay. So in that case, I'm saying, okay, I'm going 3 left from here. So that's 1, 2, 3. Okay. So I am switching the order and I am switching the signs. We know down here that I'm going to have a positive and a negative. Okay. So that means that I know that when I flip flop it, I'm going to have 2, but my second one is going to be -1. Okay. I'm going to have 8, but my second is going to be -1 because I had to flip flop it and change the sign of the second one. I'm going to have 2, but my y is going to be -9. So that's how we do it. You flip flop the order and then you follow, okay, what sign did I have to change a sign? Basically, what I do is I see where it's going to land and say, okay, well, if it's going to land here, I know that what my signs are going to be because I know that in quadrant 4, it's positive, negative for my signs. So now we'll go ahead and quickly draw that. Okay, so since it's going to be here, well, let's kind of think about this. When I do this, it's going to be pretty much the opposite of there. So I'll probably have one space here, and we're going to prove it in just a minute, and I'll have 2 spaces here, and then I'll probably end right there. But we're going to just prove it right now. So I said I'm going over 2, and I'm going down 1. Okay, we said I'm going over 8. So that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, and I'm going down 1. So that's right there. We said that I am going over 2 and I'm going down 9. So that's 2. And then there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 should be right there. So it is a little bit longer at the bottom just so that you can see that. But then we're going to go ahead and draw a line. So going through here, we'll see again, notice I've got 2 spaces away on this line going right here. Notice I've got 1 space going right here. But there's my triangle. So you can see that when it flipped over, it's giving you that same amount of space that you would have had for the bottom, which means if I did a rotation here, I'm going to have 1 row here and I'm going to have 2 here. So it's kind of easy to see if you did the right rotation, if your spacing works out, because it's the opposite if you're going into the next coordinate. It's going to probably be the same. So here, if I have 2, remember I said I'm going to have 2, it's going to be the opposite going there. It'll just be at the bottom, and we're going to prove that right now. So 180 degrees, let's go up and prove the rule. So our rule for 180 degrees doesn't matter where we are pulling it from. I'm just going to go ahead and we said, I just put 180 degrees. Most of the time, that's what you'll see because it doesn't matter which direction, if it says clockwise or counterclockwise. I'm going to just go ahead and pull this. We're going to copy it down, and I'm just going to put no matter what, our rule. Sorry, the struggle is real. Our rule, okay, no matter if I'm going two quadrants right or two quadrants left, is going to be the same. Okay, I'm going to keep the order, and I am going to go ahead and just change the signs for both. And if we remember, I'm going to go ahead and copy this down on the next page, just so we have it. I keep trying to do the copy paste, but I'm just going to have to control V. But so that's what I have. Remember, that's what triangle A is. So let's go ahead and look at that. So if that's triangle A, well, I'm keeping the order of the numbers. I'm just changing the sign on both. So here, I'm going to go ahead and just bring it down. And let's first look and say, okay, well, if I'm going 180 degrees, sorry, it shifted over. If I'm going 180 degrees, that's going 1, 2, no matter what direction, 1, 2. So I'm going to end up here. And I'm going to keep the order. We're going to have -1, comma, -2. Okay. Now, the difference in this and our reflections that we were doing like that is, remember, you flip the order and flip both sides. This one, you don't flip the order. You keep the order the same. You just change both sides. So we'll have -1, 8 for this one. And we'll have -9, 2 for the last one. Okay. Let's go ahead and draw this. And we're going through and we're going to say, okay, -1, -2. Okay, you can see that it's proving that rule where this bottom part is going to be just the opposite of that. It's not a reflection, it's just the way that it rotated is how it makes it look. Okay, we're going -1, 8. So that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. And our last one is going to be -9, 2. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You can tell I'm having trouble with this one a little bit because I'm having trouble seeing it. And then when we connect the dots, you'll see, like what I said, it flips over so it has the same space. And I didn't mean to do that, but we're going to go ahead and do a better line for the next one. That's actually pretty good for freehand. And I'm just going to go with it, and we're going to pretend that it looks good just so that you're not have to sit for my uber perfection issues and have to watch as I try to erase it and fix it. But that way you can kind of see that it goes in this, that it does what I said with the directions, that it's going to change. That line's not off too bad. That's not too bad for freehand. Okay. So now I want you to be able to see what type of rotation. So first of all, here's what we're going to do. There's two ways to do it. Number one, you can look at the coordinates. Number two, you can look at what direction it did. So I'm starting here because remember, this is my original, this is my copy because the copy has an error, it has a mark behind it. So I'm going to say, I'm going to first do clockwise, which is right. So that's 1, 2. So that's 180. Okay. Well, this one, obviously, if it's 2, it's going to be 180 no matter what. 1, 2. So we're saying the rule that we have here is we are going 180 degrees. Okay. And we said the rule for that is we go through and we're saying, okay, well, it is same order, just different signs for both pairs. And again, that's just a way to describe the effects of what's happening with the rotation because you have to just be able to describe the effects of what happens to the coordinates. All right, next one we are going to look at is what is the rotation. So we're looking here, we're saying we're going to do clockwise and then we're going to do counterclockwise. So clockwise, we're going 90 degrees. Okay, so we're going to say, I'm going to put 90 clockwise, okay, which means we're going 270 counterclockwise, and that'll be CC. Okay. Our rule for those, going back up, let's see what rule for, and I'll just pull up one rule for 90 degrees counterclockwise. Uh, or clockwise is this. So we're saying, okay, for this one, the effect of it would be that we would change the y, we would change the order and change the sign of y. And here's the proof. Let's kind of look at this before we do that last one. So what we're saying is that if my original p was -2, 2, and I probably shouldn't have chosen that. Let's choose r instead. So because it's two different ones. So my original r is 2, -4. Okay. Our copy, okay, or our not original, is going to be -2, +4. So just keep that in mind that that's the copy. We can prove that it did that again. So that's just saying again, I started out with 2, -4. Well, when I switched, I kept the order, but I switched both signs. So I ended up with the opposite sign for each number, but in the same order. In this one, I'm going to go ahead and I'll use n. So n original, let me get in this box. N original, our sign was, or we were at -4, comma, -2, and we know that's there. Well, think about this. If I'm switching up, I'm going to change the signs. It's going to be negative positive because that's where I went. Okay, so we're going to say n copy. Okay, we're going to change the orders. Okay, so we have 2, and then my second sign is going to have to be negative because or it's going to have to be positive because we're going up instead of down. So we're having 2, comma, sorry, -2, comma, 4. So we switch the order and we switch the sign of x. So x, instead of being negative, is positive. Or really the number that you switched is going to be negative instead of positive. What usually confuses me is I sit there and I think x, y, and I want to change the first number. But what I think about, if I switch the order, I switch the sign just based on where I land, that helps me a lot. Our last one, let's look at it. We're going to go from F. We're going to go clockwise. Clockwise, we're going 1, 2, 3. So we know that's 270 clockwise. I'm going to do C for clockwise, and that's going to be 90 degrees counterclockwise. Okay. Well, our rule for that, let's go ahead and go back and pull it up. We're saying we're going to change the order. We know that. Okay. And we're going to change the sign of the first coordinate that we changed. So it's hard for me to think of it sometimes in X and Y, but we just want to know that when we change the order, and here's how we know. We'll kind of go in here again. So we change the order, we change the sign. So you can look at it in direction, you can look at it however you need to, but just know that when that happens, you need to change the order and change the sign. So in this case, we're starting out, we're saying to my original, let's go with F. My original F is going to be -4, comma, 2. Okay. F copy, remember F copy has the parenthesis or the little apostrophe behind it. Negative, or F copy, if we let me look over there, we're gonna switch the order, switch the signs. Well, again, if I'm in this quadrant, I know I'm gonna be positive, negative. Okay. So I'm gonna switch the order. I've got 2, 4. Okay. I'm switching the signs. So really it's gonna be hold on. I messed something up. This should be -2. Okay. And then I'm going to switch it up, F copy. So my original is -4, -2. My F copy is going to be, we're switching the order. So we'll have, and we're switching the sign of the first one because we're landing in quadrant 4. So quadrant 4 is positive. We've got a 2. We're keeping it in there. It's positive, negative, or sorry, it's 2. I couldn't write it, comma, -4. Okay. So we switch the order and we make sure that we have the right signs. Sometimes it helps me to just know if I'm switching the order and then where it landed, I base the signs on that. That's one of the things I look at. What I want you to do, I'll go ahead and pause it again so that we can go back over any questions or anything that we need to review. And then we'll do some guided practice and you'll have some independent practice that you guys will have to do.